Have you ever stopped to think about the incredible journey your body and mind take? I mean, from the moment you're conceived right up until your very last breath. It's truly astounding.
It really is a whole lifetime of change.
Yeah, and today on the deep dive, we're going way beyond just, getting taller. We're going to unpack the science and even the cultural forces that shape us.
Right, intricately shape us.
Hmm.
From tiny changes inside a single cell all the way up to the grand arc of a whole life.
It's like this amazing map of how we become who we are. And our mission today, well, is to give you a clear, kind of engaging shortcut to understanding this complex dance.
The dance of human growth and development. We want to explore the hows and whys, hopefully give you some aha moments, maybe some surprising facts you can share.
Exactly. So what's on the roadmap for this deep dive? Well, first we'll get clear on growth versus development. They're not the same thing.
Important distinction.
Then we'll dive into the basic principles guiding our journey. How scientists actually track all this change. We'll look at the different life stages.
And even get into some theories about, why we age.
It's the whole picture, conception to older age.
Okay, let's jump in.
So when we talk about how we change, most people kind of use growth and development interchangeably, right? But scientifically, they're actually distinct.
Yeah, they are. Think of growth as the changes you can measure, the quantitative stuff.
Like getting taller. Or gaining weight.
Exactly. Or even just an increase in the number of cells in your body. It's basically about getting bigger or, having more of something.
And this happens like at the cellular level in a few main ways.
That's right. 3 main ways. First, there's hyperplasia, simple idea, just an increase in the number of your cells. More cells, more growth.
Okay, more cells. Got it.
Second, hypertrophy. This is when your individual cells get bigger. Think about muscle cells when you exercise. They don't necessarily multiply, they just increase in size.
Ah, right. Bigger cells. And the third one, you said it often surprises people.
Yes, accretion. This is when the actual substance between your cells increases. Like collagen, the stuff that sort of binds tissues together.
Oh, like the scaffolding.
Pretty much. When that intercellular scaffolding increases, it adds to your overall measurable growth.
Okay, so hyperplasia, hypertrophy, accretion, that's growth, the numbers game.
Exactly. Now, development, that's a much broader term. It definitely includes those quantitative changes we just talked about.
So there's more than that.
Yeah. Crucially, it also includes qualitative changes. It's about progress. Moving from something, let's say, unspecialized to something more specialized, more efficient.
Okay, qualitative.
Yeah.
Like getting better at something, not just bigger.
Precisely. You might not be getting taller, but your skills could be improving dramatically. Think about learning to ride a bike.
Right. My legs didn't suddenly grow, but my balance, coordination, that all got way better.
That's development. Or, improving your problem-solving skills, your speech getting clearer, even your internal systems, like your digestion or your immune system, becoming more efficient. These are qualitative leaps.
So when you learned to ride that bike, was that mainly growth or a leap in development? What do you think the biggest difference is for you personally?
For me, it's definitely development in that case. It's about function, about complexity.
Okay, so that distinction is clear. Now let's talk about the blueprint. How does this all happen? Is it random?
Not at all. Human growth follows some pretty predictable patterns, principles, really.
Like what?
Well, one foundational principle is cephalocaudal growth. Sounds fancy, but it just means development happens from head to toe.
Head to toe.
Yeah, think about babies. Their heads and faces develop much earlier and faster, then growth sort of proceeds downwards to the body and legs.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
Then there's proximodistal growth. This describes development moving from the center to the outward regions.
Center outwards. How does that work?
Well, think about a baby again. They first gain control of their head and their torso, the core, before they develop the finer motor skills in their hands and fingers, for hand-eye coordination.
Ah, I see. Core control first, then the limbs.
Exactly. Another key principle is continuity, growth, and development. They're continuous processes throughout your entire life. They happen gradually.
So it doesn't just stop after childhood?
Nope. Especially those qualitative changes, learning new things, developing new skills that can happen at any age. Development keeps going.
But surely the rate changes. You don't keep growing taller forever.
Absolutely. That's the principle of different rates. Growth is incredibly fast during infancy, then it slows right down during childhood.
Until the teenage years, right? The growth spurt.
Bam, exactly. Another rapid burst during adolescence. Then in adulthood, physical height growth pretty much stops. And in old age, you might even see a slight decline, maybe due to bones compressing a bit.
Okay, so it's continuous, but the speed varies.
And that leads to sequentiality. There's a definite sequence. Certain organs develop before others, motor skills emerge in a predictable order.
And that predictability must be useful. For doctors, maybe.
Hugely important. It allows them to track if a child is developing normally. If something's way ahead or way behind schedule, it could signal a potential issue. They look for hyper more than average or hypo less than average features.
Right. And the last principle.
That's interaction. This is crucial. Your growth and development aren't just down to your genes. They're a complex interplay between three big things: your genes, your physical environment.
Like diet, pollution, that kind of thing?
Yeah, and also socio-cultural factors, your family, your community, the cultural norms you grow up with. It's all tangled together, shaping who you become.
Wow, okay. So thinking about that center outwards idea, the proximodistal growth, can you think of a skill you developed that felt like it came from the center out? Maybe learning an instrument or a sport.
That's a great way to frame it. It really makes you think about how skills unfold.
So these principles lay out the blueprint. But how do scientists actually, map the journey? How do they get the data?
That's where growth curves come in. They're basically statistical pictures of how growth typically happens.
Statistical pictures.
Yeah, scientists create them by studying thousands of people in a population, say, kids in a certain region, tracking their growth over time. Then doctors use these curves as a benchmark.
Like the percentile charts you see at the pediatrician's office.
Exactly like those. They show if an individual's growth is falling within the typical range for their age.
Are there different kinds of curves?
Two main types. First, the distance curve. This shows the total amount of growth over time, like your total height plotted against your age.
Okay, total growth. So it always goes up or maybe flattens out.
Right, it never goes to zero. You can't ungrow height. It generally increases, flattens in adulthood, and might dip just slightly in old age.
And the second type.
That's the velocity curve.
Yeah.
This one shows the rate of growth, how fast you're growing at different points in time.
Ah, the speed of growth. So that can go to zero.
It absolutely can. Like when your height stops increasing in adulthood, the velocity is zero. The typical pattern for height velocity is a really high peak in infancy, then a big drop during childhood, another significant spike during adolescence, that growth spurt again, and then it drops close to zero in adulthood.
Interesting. So let's look at some specific examples for humans, maybe using ages like 5, 12, and 20 as landmarks.
Sure. Let's start with brain growth. This one is truly remarkable. Get this. 90% of your brain's growth happens by the time you're just 5 years old.
90% by 5. Wow. What about the other 10%?
That happens much more slowly over the next 15 years or so, up to around age 20.
Incredible. Okay, what about reproductive growth?
That's almost zero, really negligible, until around age 12. Then, with adolescence, there's a sudden, really significant spike. It peaks around age 20.
A very different pattern to the brain.
Very different. And then there's your lymphoid system, that's your immune system.
How does that grow?
It shows pretty normal growth until maybe 7 or 8 years old. Then, something amazing happens. It surges, actually growing beyond 100% capacity.
Beyond 100%, like supercharged.
Kind of. Almost double the antibodies you'd normally need. This peak lasts until about age 12, and then it gradually declines back down to the normal 100% level by age 20.
That's wild. Why would it do that? Preparing for something.
That's a good question. Perhaps priming the system during a vulnerable period? And finally, your general body growth height, weight overall that follows the typical velocity curve we talked about.
Right. Rapid infancy, slow childhood, adolescent spike, then leveling off around 20.
Exactly.
Which of those curves surprised you the most? For me, it's still that 90% brain growth by 5. It really makes you think about how critical those early years are.
It really does highlight their importance, doesn't it? So how do scientists actually collect all this detailed data to build these curves?
Yeah, what are the methods?
Well, there are specific research methods. The first one is the longitudinal method.
Longitudinal. That sounds like it takes a long time.
It does. You study the same person or group of people repeatedly over a very long period, often 20, maybe even 25 years or more, tracking their growth and development from infancy into adulthood.
Wow. What's the benefit of doing that?
The huge advantage is you get an incredibly detailed, personalized story of growth for that specific individual. You can see exactly how things changed over time for them.
But the downsides must be significant.
Oh, definitely. It's incredibly time-consuming. It costs a lot of money. And, people move away or drop out of the study or, unfortunately, might even pass away. Decades of effort can be lost.
Right. Are there famous examples?
Sure, large twin studies are often longitudinal. They provide amazing insights into nature versus nurture, but they require massive commitment from everyone involved.
Okay, so that's one way. What's another?
The cross-sectional method. This is much quicker.
How does that work?
Instead of following the same people, you study multiple individuals from different age groups, all at one single point in time. So you might study a group of 1-year-olds, a group of 5-year-olds, and a group of 10-year-olds all today.
Like taking a snapshot across different ages. What are the pros and cons there?
Well, the big pro is it's much faster and cheaper. You get a broad overview of how different age groups compare right now.
In the con.
The main drawback is you can't easily tell why there are differences between the age groups. Is it just age, or were their environments different growing up? You know, the generation gap idea, you're not tracking the same people, so you lose that individual story.
Okay, so longitudinal gives depth, cross-sectional gives breadth, but maybe less certainty about cause. Is there a middle ground?
There is. It's called the semi-longitudinal method, or sometimes cross-sequential. It's basically a hybrid.
How does that work?
You take multiple individuals from different age groups, like in cross-sectional, but then you study them more than once over a shorter period than a full longitudinal study. Maybe follow them for 5 or 10 years.
So you start with different ages, but then you track them for a while.
Exactly. For example, study kids aged 1 to 10, and then keep studying those same kids until they hit 20. It tries to balance the detailed individual data with broader trends. It's often better at figuring out cause and effect than pure cross-sectional.
That sounds like a good compromise, though probably still complex.
It is. Still takes time and money, and people can still drop out. But it often gives really rich data. Many large health studies use this kind of approach, tracking groups over maybe a decade or two.
Interesting. So if you were a scientist trying to figure out if a new teaching method improved kids' thinking skills, which method would you choose and why? It seems like each one gives you a different piece of the puzzle.
That's a great question, and scientists grapple with that choice all the time. It really depends on the specific question and resources.
Okay, moving from the how of studying growth to the why, all of this change from our first cell division to our final years, it seems to fit into a larger picture, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The biologist Dogzansky famously said, "Nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution." And that strongly applies here. This brings us to a really powerful idea, life history theory.
Life history theory. What's the core idea?
Think of it like this. Every living thing gets a kind of energy budget at birth, a fixed amount of energy for its whole life.
An energy budget, like money in the bank.
Exactly. And that energy has to be allocated, spent carefully on different things. Growing your body, maintaining your body, just staying alive, repairing damage, reproducing, and for many species, including us, raising offspring.
Okay, so you have to decide where the energy goes.
Right. And here's the critical part, the trade-off. Energy you invest in one area cannot be used for another. It's a zero-sum game with your energy budget.
So give me an example of a trade-off.
Okay, how about growth versus reproduction or lifespan? If you pour tons of energy into growing really big, really fast,
Like a bodybuilder.
maybe that might mean less energy is available for maintaining your health over the long term, or even for reproduction. Some observations, for instance, suggest that extreme, prolonged focus on muscle growth might come with trade-offs for lifespan or later health.
Interesting. What other trade-offs are there?
Reproduction versus lifespan is a big one. Species that reproduce a lot, have many offspring quickly, often tend to have shorter lifespans.
Like dogs compared to humans. Dogs have big litters, shorter lives.
Generally, yeah. Humans historically had fewer offspring spaced further apart and potentially longer lifespans. Although, interestingly, our really distant ancestors probably had higher fertility, which coincided with much lower life expectancies, maybe only 35, 38 years on average.
Wow. So more babies potentially meant shorter lives back then.
It's a complex balance shaped by evolution. And one more, maintenance versus reproduction or growth. If you put a huge amount of energy into just surviving, repairing damage, staying healthy.
Maybe less energy is left for having kids or growing bigger.
Exactly. Think about stories of ancient sages or monks who practiced extreme energy conservation through meditation and simple living. They were often believed to live exceptionally long lives, perhaps partly because minimal energy was channeled into reproduction or major physical exertion.
It makes you see the whole life cycle differently, doesn't it? As a series of energy decisions.
It really does. And this evolutionary perspective helps explain why many of our cultural norms, our rituals around life stages, often align quite well with these biological realities and trade-offs.
So if you had that fixed energy budget for your whole life, how would you choose to divide it? Growing, staying healthy, family? What's the top priority? It's a tough one.
It makes you think. And this evolutionary framework is a great lens as we walk through the major stages of human growth. Let's look at them. Prenatal, birth, infancy, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and finally, senescence or aging.
And we'll focus on the biocultural links, right? Not just the biology.
Absolutely. Let's start at the very beginning. The prenatal stage. Womb to world.
This is from conception onwards.
Right. A single fertilized cell, the zygote, implants in the uterus, becomes an embryo, then a fetus. It's about 40 weeks, usually divided into 3 trimesters. The development is incredibly rapid.
What are some milestones?
At just 5 weeks, the brain, spinal cord, heart are already starting to form. By 6 weeks, the tiny heart is pumping blood. By 10 weeks, the embryo becomes a fetus, and believe it or not, about 90% of the basic adult body parts are already laid out in miniature.
That early?
Yeah. By 20 weeks, there's rapid eye movement. After 27 weeks, legs develop further, reflexes appear. It's an astonishingly complex construction process.
And this must be a really vulnerable time.
Extremely vulnerable. Disruptions from the environment, things like alcohol, smoking, poor nutrition, or genetic factors can have major impacts.
What's unique about human gestation, bioculturally speaking?
Well, our relatively long gestation period compared to many mammals seems crucial. It allows for that incredibly intricate wiring of the human brain.
Laying the foundation for learning, language, all that complex stuff.
Exactly. And it also explains why human babies are so dependent, needing extensive parental care after birth. That long development time in the womb sets the stage for long-term dependency and learning outside the womb.
What about things like morning sickness? Is there a biocultural angle there?
There really is. Those aversions many pregnant women feel, especially towards things like coffee, alcohol, bitter vegetables, it's increasingly seen as an evolved adaptation.
An adaptation.
To protect the developing embryo from potential toxins during its most vulnerable early stages, the body is basically saying steer clear of anything potentially harmful.
And that links to cultural practices.
Absolutely. Think about all the cultural taboos and restrictions placed on pregnant women in different societies, foods they shouldn't eat, places they shouldn't go. While the specific reasons given might vary, the underlying function often seems to be protective, aligning with this biological drive to shield the fetus.
Like the taboo against women drinking alcohol, especially during pregnancy.
Precisely. While sometimes framed in terms of social control, there's likely a deep evolutionary root there, protecting the fetus from harm, as seen tragically in fetal alcohol syndrome.
Okay, so the prenatal stage is foundation building. What happens after birth?
We enter birth, infancy, and childhood. The first month, the neonatal stage, is absolutely critical. Historically, this was the period with the highest risk of mortality.
Because the baby has to adapt so quickly to the outside world.
Exactly. Its own systems, breathing, temperature regulation have to kick in and work independently. Just maintaining body temperature is a huge challenge for a newborn.
Then comes infancy.
Right. Infancy lasts up to about age 4. This is the main period of nursing. Physical growth is incredibly rapid. Weight often doubles in the first 6 months, triples in the first year.
And brain development, too.
Massive brain development. Bones hardening, motor skills emerging, sitting up, crawling, eventually walking. And around 6 months, those first deciduous or milk teeth appear.
Which allows them to start eating solid food.
Exactly. It enables that transition away from exclusive breastfeeding.
And after infancy
comes childhood, roughly from age 4 to 12. We often break it down into early, middle, and late childhood. Physical growth actually slows down quite a bit here compared to infancy.
But learning speeds up.
Dramatically. This is a key period for learning. Walking becomes efficient, permanent teeth replace the milk teeth. And towards the end of childhood, around 9-12, the hormonal changes that trigger adolescent growth start kicking in.
Now, the biocultural insights here. Why do humans celebrate birth so much, almost universally?
Great question. It likely stems from the fact that human birth is uniquely difficult and dangerous, historically speaking.
Why is it difficult for humans?
It's a consequence of our evolution. Walking upright bipedalism required changes to our pelvis, making it narrower. But we also evolved larger brains. So fitting a large-headed baby through a relatively narrow pelvis is tricky.
A tight squeeze.
A very tight squeeze. So historically, a successful birth where both mother and child survived was a major, a real battle won. Hence the widespread cultural impulse to celebrate it. Modern medicine has drastically reduced the risks, of course, but the cultural echoes remain.
What about the baby's brain being undeveloped at birth?
That's another fascinating biocultural point. Being born with a brain that's still very much under construction is actually a huge advantage for a species like ours that relies so heavily on learning. It means the brain develops in response to the environment, the culture, the language it's exposed to. Our language centers, for example, wire up as we hear and learn language. If our brains were fully formed at birth, we wouldn't have that adaptability.
And the smaller head makes birth easier too, right, given the pelvis issue.
Exactly. It's an evolutionary compromise.
Let's talk about breastfeeding. You mentioned infancy lasts up to 4 years sometimes. Why is human milk the way it is?
Right. Human breast milk is notably lower in protein and fat compared to many other mammals. This isn't a deficiency, it seems to be an adaptation.
How?
Because it's less calorically dense, babies need to feed much more frequently. This frequent feeding keeps the mother and infant in close contact, which is vital for the vulnerable baby's survival and bonding. It prevents separation.
And does it affect the mother?
Yes. Frequent nursing typically suppresses ovulation. This acts as a natural birth spacer, meaning children are often born several years apart.
Which increases the survival chances for each child, because the mother can invest more in one before the next arrives.
Precisely. And this long period of infant dependency also encourages social support systems, fathers, grandmothers, other relatives helping to provide for the mother and child. It fosters social bonds.
What about the long childhood, up to 12 years, where kids aren't really expected to contribute economically?
That unusually long human childhood is another key adaptation, strongly reinforced by culture. In most traditional societies, and reflected in modern laws, children under a certain age are provisioned and protected.
Why is this period so long?
Evolutionarily, parents who invested heavily in their children during this extended period teaching them, protecting them, likely had greater reproductive success because their kids were better equipped for survival and later reproduction themselves. It's crucial time for developing complex technical skills, social skills, understanding the world.
Like an extended apprenticeship for life.
A perfect way to put it. Think of ancient Sparta training boys or traditional societies teaching hunting or farming skills during these years. It's preparation and proving ground.
You also mentioned social birth. What's that?
This is the idea that while biological birth happens at one moment, the point at which a child is considered a full person within a society, their social birth might happen later.
Why would that be?
It often correlates with high rates of infant mortality, either historically or currently. If many babies don't survive the first few months or year, societies might unconsciously delay full social recognition, naming ceremonies, or intense emotional investment until the child has passed that critical danger period. It's a cultural coping mechanism.
Wow. Considering all these challenges, difficult birth, undeveloped brains, long dependency, what does it tell you about us? About human resilience?
It tells us we are incredibly adaptable and that our biology and culture are deeply intertwined to overcome these hurdles. It's quite remarkable.
Okay, so from childhood, we transition into adolescence, and you said this stage is pretty unique to humans.
Yes, as a distinct extended period between childhood and full adulthood, it's not really seen in other primates or animals in the same way.
What defines it biologically?
Big changes. There's that rapid growth spurt height, bone density, muscle, fat. Sweat glands kick into high gear, which is why teenagers often start having distinct body odor and sweat more.
And then there are sex-specific changes.
Right. For males, testosterone drives the growth of the penis, tests, pubic, and facial hair. For females, estrogen and progesterone trigger menstruation, breast development, and characteristic fat deposition, often around the hips.
Why did adolescence emerge in humans, evolutionarily speaking?
The thinking is it became possible and advantageous as human lifespans increased, particularly with the shift to agriculture. Hunter-gatherer lives were often shorter, demanding earlier reproduction. With longer potential lifespans, this extra time opened up.
Extra time for what?
To develop even more complex social skills, cognitive abilities, technical knowledge, skills that would further boost survival and reproductive success in increasingly complex human societies. It's an extended learning and practice phase before taking on full adult responsibilities.
And culturally, this is a huge transition point, isn't it?
Absolutely massive. Across the globe, adolescence is marked by shifts in how societies view and treat boys and girls. You see rites of passage everywhere.
Like initiation ceremonies for boys, proving their readiness for manhood.
Exactly. Think of traditional warrior societies or apprenticeships. And for girls, the onset of menstruation is often marked, sometimes with celebrations, like in some South Indian communities or historically among Apache groups. But it can also bring new restrictions or taboos, signifying the transition to womanhood and reproductive potential.
It's a biological event, triggering major social redefinition.
Precisely.
What societal expectations or rituals have you noticed around this transition into adulthood? How do they match with the biology?
It's fascinating how varied yet universal these transitions are. So after adolescence, we enter adulthood.
This is when growth stops.
Quantitative height growth largely stops. Yes, the ends of our long bones, the epiphyses, fuse so they can't get longer. But body volume can definitely still increase, mainly through fat deposition.
Right. And this is generally seen as the peak phase.
In many ways, yes. Physical and mental maturity. Muscle mass typically peaks in early adulthood. Bone density hits its maximum usually in the late 20s. The body's internal balance, homeostasis, is generally very stable.
And it's the main reproductive phase.
Correct. Biologically, this is the prime childbearing phase. The body generally has its peak physical capacity and often the highest resistance to infectious diseases and physiological stress.
You mentioned something interesting earlier, basal metabolic rate, BMR. It declines in adulthood.
Yeah, that's an important point. Your BMR, the energy you burn just by being alive at rest, naturally starts to decline during adulthood. It's a physiological process.
So weight gain isn't just about lifestyle changes then? Part of it is the body naturally needing less energy?
That's part of the picture, yes. Now, a really striking biocultural point related to adulthood involves female physiology and menstruation.
Okay.
Think about our hunter-gatherer ancestors. Women likely experience maybe 50 or 60 menstrual cycles in their entire lives.
Only 50 or 60. Why so few?
Because they were likely pregnant or breastfeeding almost continuously throughout their reproductive years. Frequent nursing, as we said, suppresses ovulation.
Okay. And how does that compare to modern women?
The contrast is stark. With increased lifespans, better nutrition, and much lower fertility rates, fewer pregnancies, less time spent breastfeeding, modern women in developed nations might experience 400 or even more cycles.
400. That's a huge difference. Does it have health implications?
Some geneticists and evolutionary biologists suggest it might. The hypothesis is that reproductive organs like the ovaries and uteruses are essentially being subjected to far more hormonal cycles than they were designed for by evolution. This constant cycling, this overliving their evolutionary design, may be a contributing factor to the increased rates of certain cancers, like ovarian and uterine cancer.
Wow, that's a sobering thought. It really highlights the mismatch between our evolutionary past and our modern lives.
It does, and it underscores why regular health screenings, especially for women after their 40s, are so crucial for early detection and prevention.
Okay, so adulthood is peak function, but also reveals these modern life mismatches. What comes next?
The final stage, senescence, basically aging.
The declining phase.
Right, marked by a gradual decrease in the body's functional capacity. It's essentially negative growth, in a way.
What are the typical signs?
The familiar ones. Hair graying, bones becoming more brittle, muscles weakening, maybe teeth loosening. The immune system generally becomes less efficient, memory might decline, sexual libido often decreases.
Is there a process happening at the cellular level?
Yes, it's often described as a kind of 6-step cascade. Unwanted substances might accumulate in cells, impairing tiny subcellular functions. This reduces the cell's overall efficiency. Eventually, cells may die.
And cell death leads to tissue problems.
Exactly. Reduced tissue and organ efficiency follows, leading to a general deterioration of the whole organism and ultimately an increased probability of death.
Is the decline uniform across all body functions?
Not necessarily. An interesting idea from Nathan Schock suggested that activities requiring the coordinated effort of multiple organ systems, like your maximum breathing capacity, tend to decline much more sharply with age than activities controlled mainly by a single system, like basic nerve conduction speed.
Okay, coordination breaks down faster. Now, you mentioned biological versus chronological age earlier.
Ah, yes, a really important distinction. Chronological age is simple. It's your age in years and days, how long you've been alive. Objective.
But biological age is different.
Very different. It reflects your body's actual condition, its true age, based on physiological health, how well your organs are functioning. It's much more subjective and can vary hugely between people of the same chronological age.
So you could be 50 chronologically, but have a biological age of 40.
Absolutely. If you have a very healthy lifestyle, good diet, regular exercise, low stress, good sleep, your organs might be functioning like those of a younger person. Think of athletes who stay fit well into middle age.
And the reverse could be true. You could be biologically older than your years.
Definitely. Living in a very polluted environment, smoking, heavy drinking, chronic stress, poor diet, all these things can accelerate the aging process at a biological level, making your body functionally older than your chronological age.
What determines biological age then? Is it just lifestyle?
Lifestyle is huge, but not the only factor. Genes play a part. Some people seem to inherit longevity genes or genes for more robust organ function. Your habitat matters. Clean air, clean water, good soil quality can make a difference.
And lifestyle covers.
Exercise, diet, stress management, sleep quality, strong social networks, avoiding harmful habits like smoking and excessive alcohol. It's a combination of factors.
Are there places where people seem to age slower biologically?
Yes. These are often called blue zones areas with unusually high numbers of healthy, long-lived people, especially centenarians.
Like Okinawa in Japan.
Okinawa is a classic example. They have a high number of people living over 100. Factors seem to include things like daily light activity, like gardening, a strong sense of purpose they call ikigai, and a practice called harahachibu, consciously eating only until you're about 80% full.
Interesting. Any others?
Sardinia in Italy is another, known for many healthy octogenarians. Genetics might play a role there, linked to their historical shepherd communities, plus regular physical activity and a Mediterranean diet rich in micronutrients.
And Nicoya in Costa Rica.
Right. They have a high happiness index, strong social connections, calcium and magnesium-rich water, regular physical activity, and apparently they prioritize getting enough sleep, typically at least 8 hours.
It sounds like a combination of genetics, environment, lifestyle, and maybe even outlook.
That seems to be the recipe.
So if your biological age could be revealed right now,
Yeah.
what factors in your current life do you think would be pushing it lower or maybe higher than your actual age? Something to reflect on.
It certainly is. Which brings us to the big question, why do we age in the first place? Scientists don't have one single answer, but there are several compelling theories.
Yeah, what are some of the main ideas?
We can group them. Some focus on things happening inside the cell. One is the genetic blueprint idea, or the Hayflick limit theory,
Hayflick limit.
named after Leonard Hayflick. The idea is that most normal human cells have a kind of built-in clock. They can only divide a limited number of times, maybe 40 to 60 times, and then they stop dividing and eventually die. Programmed cell death.
So cells just wear out their welcome.
In a sense. And species with longer lifespans, like tortoises, their cells tend to have a higher Hayflick limit that can divide more times.
Okay, what's another cellular theory?
The free radical theory. This is quite popular. The idea is that normal metabolic processes in our cells produce these unstable molecules called free radicals, basically, oxygen molecules with an extra reactive electron.
And they cause damage.
They're highly reactive and can damage cell components like fats and proteins, creating age pigments. This accumulated damage over time contributes to cellular aging.
Is this why we hear about antioxidants?
Exactly. Antioxidants are substances that can neutralize free radicals, theoretically reducing that damage.
Any other theories focusing inside the cell?
There are various error theories. One suggests aging is due to accumulating errors during DNA replication or when proteins are made. Tiny mistakes happen, and over time, the repair mechanisms might become less efficient, leading to faulty genes and declining function.
Like typos building up in the instruction manual.
A good analogy. Another related idea is the error catastrophe theory, the idea that one critical error could trigger a cascade, a domino effect, leading to widespread dysfunction.
Okay, so internal limits, damage, errors. What about factors outside the cell?
One theory focuses on collagen. Collagen is that protein that acts like glue between cells and tissues. Normally, the bonds holding collagen fibers together can break and reform, allowing nutrient in and waste out.
But that changes with age.
The theory suggests that with age, these bonds can become more permanent, more cross-linked, making the collagen stiffer and less soluble. This could hinder the normal function of the cells embedded within it.
Like the scaffolding getting rusty and rigid.
Kind of. Then there's the brain as a pacemaker theory. This suggests the brain controls the aging process through chemical signals.
How?
Specifically, the production of neurotransmitters like catecholamines, which rely on a substance called L-DOPA. These neurotransmitters are crucial for the brain to communicate with and coordinate other organs. As we age, L-DOPA synthesis might decline, impairing this communication and leading to a general functional decline.
Like the conductor slowing down, affecting the whole orchestra.
Exactly, and the immunological theory focuses on the immune system itself.
It gets weaker with age?
Generally, yes. Its efficiency decreases, maybe fewer antibodies are produced, or the cells become less effective. This makes the body more vulnerable to infections and diseases, increasing the chance of death.
So we have theories based on cells, the stuff between cells, the brain, the immune system. Is there an evolutionary take on why aging happens at all?
Yes, the disposable soma theory. Soma just means the body, as opposed to the reproductive cells.
Disposable body. That sounds harsh.
It does, but it ties back to life history theory and that energy budget idea. Organisms have finite energy. They have to allocate it between maintaining their body, the soma, and reproduction, passing on their genes.
The trade-off again.
Exactly. The theory argues that natural selection favors allocating just enough energy to body maintenance to keep the organism alive and healthy long enough to reproduce successfully. Investing more energy than that into making the body last forever might be evolutionarily wasteful.
Why wasteful?
Because even a perfectly maintained body will eventually succumb to external factors, accidents, predators, disease, environmental changes. So from an evolutionary perspective, it's often a better strategy to prioritize reproduction, ensuring the genes get passed on, rather than pouring excessive resources into trying to achieve immortality for the individual body, which is disposable once reproduction is done.
So evolution prioritizes the continuation of the species over the indefinite survival of the individual.
That's the core idea. It's about reproductive success over generations.
Wow. Okay, lots of theories. Which one resonates most with you? And what does it imply for how we live?
They all likely hold a piece of the truth. It's probably a combination of factors. But the disposable soma theory really emphasizes that aging is, in part, a programmed trade-off, not just random decay.
Okay, that was a deep dive into aging. Let's try to recap the main points we covered today. Ready for some active recall?
Let's do it.
First up, growth versus development. What's the key difference?
Growth is quantitative measurable changes like size or number. Development is broader, including quantitative and qualitative changes getting bigger and getting better or more complex.
Got it. Then the principles of growth. We had head to toe.
Cephalocaudal and center outwards.
Proximodistal. Plus, its ongoing continuity happens at different rates, follows a set sequence, and involves that interplay of genes, environment, and culture. Interaction.
Perfect. How about growth curves?
Two main types. Distance curve for total growth over time, and velocity curve showing the rate of growth. And different systems have unique curves, right? Like the brain's rapid early growth, 90% by age 5, versus the reproductive system's later surge.
Exactly, and the study methods scientists use.
Longitudinal, same people. Long time, deep detail, but slow and costly.
Yep.
Cross-sectional. Different ages, one time, broad snapshot, but potential generation gaps. And semi-longitudinal, mix of both, balancing depth and breadth.
Good summary. What about the big evolutionary idea?
Life history theory. It's all about that energy budget and trade-offs between growth, maintenance, and reproduction, shaped by natural selection for reproductive success.
Nicely put. And the stages of life. We saw biocultural links everywhere.
Yeah, from the prenatal wiring and protective nausea to celebrating risky birth and the long childhood needed for learning, the unique human adolescence and its rites of passage, adulthood with its peak function but also modern health trade-offs, and finally senescence, the functional decline.
And tied into aging, the difference between biological and chronological age. Your lifestyle and health mean your body's true age can differ from the calendar. Think of those blue zones like Okinawa.
Right. And finally, the theories of aging. Lots of ideas there.
From cellular issues like the Hayflick limit, free radical damage, and DNA errors, to extracellular factors like collagen changes, system-level ideas involving the brain or immune system, and the overarching evolutionary explanation of the disposable soma theory.
Phew. We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. From that first single cell, through all those predictable stages, growing at different speeds, constantly shaped by our genes, our environment, our culture, and eventually, inevitably, declining with age. The human story of growth and development is truly extraordinary.
It really is. And it leaves us with a thought. As we understand more about how our bodies grow, develop, and age, what responsibilities do we have? As individuals, as societies, how can we optimize this journey for everyone, especially with all the pressures of modern life? What does it really mean to live well at every single stage?
That's the big question to ponder.